From an ethical point of view, you can make a really good case in a vacuum for why everyone actually should be a vegan if they were given the opportunity or if they had the opportunity to do so. However, it becomes more complicated when you look at it from a case by case basis and you see individual circumstances in people. In my case, I tried to be a vegan and failed due to my circumstances. And I think that my experience is not rare, but it's one of many cases where actually being a vegan is unreasonable. So here goes. To start off with the background, I decided that I would go vegan when I was in high school. And around senior year of high school was when I went vegetarian. And during that time, my diet was, I would say, more or less a healthy vegetarian or mostly vegan diet. I would eat um, a large variety of plant foods, and I would get my protein from a variety of sources like legumes, like beans, lentils, nuts, soy products, and so on. But during this time was also when I had a period of high stress. I was applying for universities, and because of the stress, or I think the stress is what triggered um, like an IBS flare up. I'd say I've had symptoms of IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, since I was very small. I've been constipated like on and off for my entire life, but it didn't get bad enough that I had to do something about it until this period in high school when I went vegetarian and when I was hit with this stress, right? And I trace this IBS. It comes from gut dysbiosis, right? Like an imbalance of bacteria in your gut that I believe in my case it was caused by like a heavy round of antibiotics when I was 4 years old or so when I had like severe pneumonia. So I was hit with this IBS. And when I was searching for solutions, I found the low FODMAP diet or learned about FODMAPs in general. And after experimenting, it turned out that I was sensitive to fructans and GOS. I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but those are like carbohydrates that exist in foods like garlic, onions, wheat products, legumes, that our body can't naturally absorb in our gut, but we depend on bacteria to process it for us. But if you've got pre-existing dysbiosis in your gut, then it can lead to flare-ups and like overpopulation of bacteria that can lead to constipation or diarrhea. So at this point, like at the end of high school, I cut out um, those foods, and that meant pretty much limiting my protein sources to soy protein, like tofu, tempeh, and also wheat gluten. And those are pretty much my only options as far as protein sources go. And I was okay with that. So that's what I did through to university. But what happened during my first year, December 2019? At this point, I'm pretty much vegan, getting all my protein from soy. Was I had kidney stones. December 2019, I had this really sharp pain in my abdomen all of a sudden. And I went to the hospital and they thought it was appendicitis. So they didn't allow me to drink water, which was the opposite of what I needed. And they were going to take my appendix out. And that's why they didn't allow me to drink water, because they were literally going to take my appendix out. But thankfully, they didn't find enough evidence that it was actually appendicitis. So I was spared that treatment. And they gave me morphine. So that took away the pain. But I don't know when I actually passed the kidney stone. But I moved on with my life, not knowing that that was actually a kidney stone that caused that pain. Around the same time the next year, I think December 2020, I was back in Hong Kong with my family. And I was at home and I experienced this pain. And at that point, my mom was there to witness My brother was there watching me curled up on the couch in like extreme pain, and he was freaking out. And so my mom was there, and she's a doctor. So I described the pain. It was a pain that was going down, like getting lower and lower in my abdomen. So she thought it was kidney stones and told me to drink a ton of water. And I did that and passed the kidney stone in like less than half an hour, and it was all good. So at that point, we knew it was kidney stones. But what causes kidney stones? The most common type of kidney stone are calcium oxalate crystals that build up in your kidneys. And what causes calcium oxalate crystals is if you take in oxalates in your diet, and oxalates exist in different foods such as potatoes, tomatoes, spinach, soy products, legumes, some nuts. It's super random. But you eat these oxalates, and if you have the bacteria in your gut that can help you bind these oxalates to other compounds, then you can successfully pass them through your system, through your stool, without them building up, without them getting absorbed by your gut lining and then building up elsewhere in your body. But if you lack this bacteria in your gut, then what happens is that your body absorbs the oxalates, and then it combines with other minerals in your body and causes crystallization. And that's what happened for me when it came to the kidney stones. So the way to solve this is to introduce other minerals that would bind with the oxalates in your gut so that they bind in your gut and you can pass them instead of crystallizing, getting absorbed and crystallizing in your body. And that's why Eric Berg recommends taking calcium lactate supplements when you eat oxalate-containing foods if you're oxalate sensitive, so that it becomes calcium oxalate crystals in your gut. So what I decided to do was eat pumpkin seeds. I forget what the exact mineral it is in the pumpkin seeds that helps, but I was eating like handfuls of pumpkin seeds every day, and it was good. It even increased my hemoglobin level. So, but that's besides the point. But I was doing that to be able to sustain my diet, to eat soy all the time while avoiding kidney stones. But what happened one time was, I think, a summer, like 1.5 years later, I believe it was summer of 2021, where I was back in Hong Kong and I was out of my schedule, stopped eating pumpkin seeds. And what happened was, earlier in that year, I was doing a bunch of parkour, and accrued a bunch of injuries, right? Whether it was just like wear and tear on my tendons from all the impact, or like a straight up injury where my shoulder came out of its socket for a second and teared a bunch of muscles in the process. And I thought that healed up, but I came back this summer and my tendons started flaring up, my joints started hurting, my muscles were tight, especially my shoulder where it got injured in the first, earlier on. And I had to go to physio for that and do rehab to get it sorted. But my muscles were tightening up all of a sudden. And I was thinking whether this had anything to do with the oxalates, because that was a major change in my lifestyle, that I stopped eating pumpkin seeds. And so what happened was, I decided if oxalates are actually the issue. Oh, well, first I searched online to see whether oxalates could be the issue, because that was the one change that I made. And turns out, or what I found was that oxalate crystals, they can build up in your kidneys, but they can also build up elsewhere in the body and cause inflammation. And so I decided, or I hypothesized that was what was going on, and decided to cut oxalates out of my diet altogether, which meant that I had to get my protein from sources that were not plant proteins, because soy protein was my last option, and I couldn't do that anymore because of oxalates. So what I did was I introduced eggs into my diet, and that was my main source of protein. And doing that and cutting out oxalates from my diet altogether, that solved the issue entirely. My muscles loosened up, and I was able to rehab my shoulder in like really quick, and I felt good again. So, based on my experience, that was what was going on. But my mom also has a history of tight muscles. She sees a coach, a personal trainer that helps her do these stretches, and she gets massages, but that the tightness doesn't seem to go away from her for her. So I suggested that she try cutting out oxalates from her diet as well, and she did that. And guess what? Her muscle tightness also improved drastically just because of this diet change. So potentially, the gut dysbiosis that led to the oxalate sensitivity actually came from her, because we get our gut microbiome from our mom, right? When we're in her womb, etc. Well, since then, I've been eating animal products to get my protein and avoiding oxalates altogether because of my pre-existing dysbiosis issues. So what we can take away is that my experience is evidence that not everyone can be vegan, and that for some people to be vegan is like an unreasonable sacrifice to make to their health. And even though I think that's a choice that a person can make, first and foremost, we have the responsibility to take care of our own health. We have the responsibility to take care of our own body, which is just us, right? We have a responsibility for ourselves before we have a responsibility for everyone else around us to bring out ethical decisions that impact other people, human and animals, in a way that minimizes bad consequences.